Hey everybody, this is Alicia Crank and welcome to the Memorial Day holiday edition of Edmonds This Week. I am at Seaview Park here in Edmonds. I don't get to hang out here that much, but I'm going to change that. And it was such a beautiful day, it had to do it out here, right? So I wanted to talk a bit more about civic engagement. Now, I know the whole kind of genesis of this podcast is to talk about it kind of on an overall scale, and it is. But I just kind of want to get to the basic brass tacks of when we talk about civic engagement, because it's one of those things that's really easy to do, but it's also really hard to do. And looking and hearing from certain people over the past few weeks, I'm starting to see that you understand what I'm about to say to you. So, again, I talked about early on how, this is an election year locally in Edmonds, a big one across the entire county, if not the state. And local folks are, as usual, starting to get more activated, get more interested in what's going on. Especially now because more of us are either working from home or we're doing more things around the community or being more homebound than normal due to the pandemic or just being able to work remote or hybrid. So you start to pay a bit more attention to what's happening around you. And the whole Edmonds RFA situation, which we all thought was going to be kind of a pretty stale, boring, run-of-the-mill special election, really got contentious on both sides of the situation, to where PDC filings, and just Google PDC if you're not sure what that is right now, but finally, competing PDC violations against each other about how things were being campaigned or talked about, it got messy. And so one of the groups that, again, thank you so much for, naming the group based off of what was said in this podcast, the Edmonds Activated Group, is doing something that is very noble, very needed. It isn't the first time it's being done, but they're still running into the same issues of what happens when anybody tries to set up kind of an umbrella group where residents, regardless of their political leaning or their opinion about a particular topic, can kind of come together so you can share information and civically engage with one another. So let's talk about what civic engagement is and what it isn't. What it isn't is trying to make everybody see your point of view. Civic engagement is being able to share various points of view and allowing people to draw their own conclusion or go the pathway that they want to go with that information. So whether or not they agree with you or come to your way of thinking, or you're not able to sway them one way or the other, the whole point of it, hopefully, is that you've learned something new, that you've taken in some new information. Now, that new information doesn't have to change your mind, but you can acknowledge that there's another point of view. You don't have to agree with it. You don't even have to like it. So I think with the Edmonds Activated Group, and in subgroups now, I shouldn't call them a subgroup, but I meant another group, KEV, which is Keep Edmonds Vibrant. You're starting to see people, individuals kind of step out and be able to kind of lead the charge to bring more residents together to talk about things, learn about what's happening in the city, become more involved in what's going on, and potentially give some input or opinion. Because even though we do have elected officials, they do still rely, or should rely, on their constituency and stakeholders to still be able to contribute to the conversations before those decisions that they're making are to be made. Now, here's where it gets hard. Because again, the easy part is just do it. Just pick the lane that you want to go. You pick the avenue of which you want to engage, because not everyone wants to engage the same way for numerous reasons. And you go that route, and then hopefully that keeps you involved, or you grow in that involvement. The hard part is when someone I was just used the word manipulate, will sometimes try to manipulate the situation, or try to come in and take over the intent of the umbrella group, or demean it because they're not able to get them to see their way of view. That's happening now. And Edmonds, we just have to be better. And this is this is not just an Edmonds issue, but because we do have a certain subset where their mindset is that whatever happens in Edmonds is so unique to here that, you know, it's an Edmonds thing. So I'm just going to say Edmonds for that sake. Edmonds, we have to do better in being able to encourage civic engagement and keeping people wanting to do that. Because part of the problem is that those who say, oh, we need more civic engagement, civic participation, will also still end up being the same people that will discourage people out of it because they're not able to make them think a certain way. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing. What we're supposed to be doing is creating space and opportunity for people to learn, to share, to have civil discourse. And that's a topic in and of itself right there. To be able to do that. And when we're not doing that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Let's just do better. Let's not criticize or be so critical or so quick to be critical in how a startup group is going after something. Why don't you lend your expertise as opposed to critiquing in a negative way how some person or some group is going about doing things? And I will say one of my pet peeves, and if you know me, I have talked about this a lot, and frankly, I've said it to certain people's faces, is that if you are so opinionated about how someone goes about doing something, and you want to critique it publicly, privately, whatever, you know what? You have the opportunity to do it your way. Instead of criticizing how someone else is using their time, talent, and resources to get people civically engaged. Sorry, that was a little point of personal privilege there. Not gonna apologize for it, which I just did, but I'm gonna take it back because it's true. Anyone that feels like a group or an individual isn't doing something the way that they feel like it should be done from a civic engagement level, then you have permission. Go right ahead. Start your own blog, start your own group, start your own whatever. Instead of putting all that energy into critiquing and criticizing and attacking those who are actually at least trying and making the effort to put this out there and to get other people involved. So again, no one's coming to me about that because they know better. But let's make sure that we're encouraging each other as well. On that note, I also want to float an idea out there. Now, I'll be curious to know what others think. Because again, I think all about this really does have an element of education. And I think that came out during the RFA discussions. It's going to come out right now with the budget, with the potential levy lift that may come on the ballot in November. There's a lot that's coming on, and I think a lot of people don't understand, and rightfully so, but don't quite understand how city finances work. Someone will say, well, if the city is broke, or if the county is broke, or if the state is broke, but we're going to focus on city. If the city is broke, how come they're able to still pay for certain things? Because there's certain buckets. It's like at work or in your own personal finances. You have a bucket of money that you use for one thing. You have a bucket of money that's geared towards another thing. Same thing with the city. There are buckets that are restricted and unrestricted that can be utilized for things, for services that are provided in the city. I would love to see a class or a workshop. Now, honestly, I think it would take more than one, but I would love to see some kind of educational process that's open to residents and stakeholders to learn more about city finances. I'm toying with the thought of doing something like that myself, and mainly it's because I think about the experience I had for 7 years leading a community engagement group called Leadership Mountain View down in California. It's the same type of program as like a Leadership Snohomish County or a Leadership Tomorrow that's done in Seattle, where you have these different days, one day a month, where you have a different topic and you learn how elements of a city or a county function by subject matter. And we always had like a city day or government day. And in that government day or the city day that we would do, departments would come and do presentations on, how they do things, what they're responsible for. And then there would be one time we would talk about kind of, how does the city's finances kind of fall into place. So I think we should do that. And of course, my first thought was it would be great if someone from the city could do it, but resources, right? They're stretched. People are being laid off. There's already people doing a lot of work beyond what they were probably originally hired to do. So there's a heavy lift. And there's been such a push on utilizing volunteer resources to be able to do stuff like this too. So I'm toying around with that idea. So let me know what you think. Do you think that you would want to participate, listen in on, watch some type of program that would talk about kind of how city finances work and what the different buckets are and what's the difference between restricted and unrestricted and where certain funding comes from? I think a lot of you might be interested in that. So let me know what you think. And if I hear enough people say that they might be interested in that, I might look at seeing what we can do to create something like that. So with that, thanks for listening in. Thanks for letting me go on my personal points of privilege to wax poetic on some of the issues that have come when it comes to civic engagement. But also, I want to applaud and encourage those who are out there doing it. Keep doing it. And for those who are very vocal around those that are doing it, again, I challenge you to offer support and help as opposed to critiquing and tearing down what others are doing. Okay, have a wonderful Memorial Day holiday. I hope you're able to spend time with family and friends. Thanks for those for their service that we will be honoring. Thank you so much.